This is our beginner quad exercise. So for this, you will need to sit up against something where your back can rest completely flush against whatever it is you're resting on. It could be a wall, it could be a chair, it could be a sofa, anything that works for you. I have placed some blocks, you can't see them, but I've placed some blocks underneath my dad's bum. And the reason is that he was really struggling to sit up tall, and he found that he was rounding in the back and his bum was like a million miles away from the chair. It was like this. So we put some blocks underneath him and it's helped him sit up a little bit taller. So what is going to happen is he's going to sit up nice and tall, and then all he's going to do is going to keep this leg straight, and he's going to lift this leg off the floor and then gently bring it back down. So nice and slow and controlled. Good, one more. Good, and then we're going to change legs, so we're going to do the other one. Really try and sit up nice and tall. Good. Where do you feel it?
On the top.
Good. So only one of your quad muscles, you have 4 quad muscles, only one of your quad muscles actually crosses the hip joint. So you will only be working one of your quad muscles, but you will be working it extremely hard because you're trying to lift your whole leg up off the floor. So there you go. There is your beginner quad exercise. Okay, so our intermediate exercise is a kneeling hinge back, which my mom is going to demonstrate. So for this, you want the knees to be hip width apart. You can have them a little bit wider if you find that that gives you a little bit more stability or a bit more of a wider base. But essentially the aim of this is that your body wants to stay in a completely straight line. So you don't want to hinge at the hips. Yep. And you also don't want to back bend. Illegal. So you want to stay nice and straight. You want to lightly squeeze the glutes, and all you're going to do is lean back and then come all the way back up. And you want to try and experiment and explore how low can you go, find your point of no return, and then come back up again. And this is a kneeling hinge back. Our advanced exercise for our quads is a sissy squat. I know that there are a lot of exercises out there that people call sissy squats. They're all different. I'm going to demonstrate what I've always known as a sissy squat and what I've always trained as a sissy squat. And it essentially works the same as the kneeling hinge back, so the exercise that my mom just demonstrated, in that you want to stay in a straight line, and then it then becomes an incredibly quad dominant squat. For this, I'm just going to say, this is a bit of a disclaimer, please make sure that you have sufficient knees, that you don't have any injuries to your knees, and that you have sufficient mobility and strength in your knees to do this, because you'll see in a moment, it doesn't require a lot of that. So, what's going to happen is, there's multiple ways that you can set this up. So I'm going to use 2 blocks just to demonstrate this. You can do this where your knees go all the way down to the floor. You can, if one block is too low, stack up lots and lots of blocks to make it a little bit higher. So once you've got your setup ready, watch it first and then see what you need to set up for this. But what's going to happen is your feet are going to come just a little bit wider than hip width apart. You're going to come up onto your tiptoes and you're going to stay on your tiptoes the whole time. So as I mentioned just now, the same as the kneeling hinge back, you want to stay completely straight. So hinging at the hips is illegal, back bend is illegal. And all we're going to do is, the knees are going to come forward, so it's a squat. So we're going to bend the legs, we're going to hinge backwards, the knees are going to tap, and then we come all the way back up again in that straight line. So we really want to resist, this temptation that as we get to the bottom, to go like this. We want to stay flat. So I'm going to demonstrate one more time. So we rise up onto the tiptoes, you hinge back. I personally have to really squeeze my glutes to make sure that I don't start bending my lower back. We hinge back, tap the blocks, and then we come all the way back up in a straight line, hinge a little bit then. But it's because I haven't done a warm up. So yeah, there you go. Make sure you do a warm up before you try any of these exercises. And that is a sissy squat. Our beginner exercise for our hamstrings, we are going to do it's a hamstring curl and lift. So what's going to happen is you're going to start in a tabletop position and then you're going to bring your forearms down to the floor. From here, you will need a block. If you don't have a yoga block, I know it's not something that everyone has in their house. You can actually use a kitchen roll. I found to be the next best thing because it's light and it's a good size that you can sandwich it in between the leg. So the block is going to go just underneath the bum, and then you're going to bend the leg and you're going to squeeze the block like you're going to snap it in half, or if it's your kitchen roll, like you're going to crumple it in half. And then from here, this is really important, keeping the pelvis level, so you don't want it to tip forwards, you don't want it to tip backwards. You're then going to lift this knee off the floor while squeezing that block as hard as you can. Go gently bring it back down. We're going to do a few reps of these. The reason why this works your hamstring so much is because your hamstring muscles just helps with two movements, which is hip extension and knee flexion. And you are working both of these in this exercise. So it looks really easy, but it's actually quite challenging. So yeah, there we go. Let's do one more. Good. And that is your beginner hamstring exercise. Our intermediate exercise for our hamstrings is a sliding hamstring curl from a glute bridge. So for this, you will need a slider. If you don't have a slider, absolutely fine. You can use a tea towel or a towel folded up. And if you do it on a shiny floor, so maybe a kitchen floor or a bathroom floor, you should have enough slide and glide to be able to do this exercise. So what's going to happen is the feet want to be about in line with your sit bone. So it's the bony part at the bottom of your bum. So you don't want the feet together, you don't want them wider than your hips. And all you're going to do is, first of all, you're going to start in a glute bridge. So you're going to push your feet down, you're going to lift the hips up, just stay there for a moment. So you want the pelvis to be neutral. So you don't want to kind of tip the pelvis forwards and crunch the lower back. So this is nice and long, and this is nice and long as well. And then from here, the leg that's on the slider is going to extend out nice and long in front of you, and then drive the heel in and down to bring it back in again. And this is, so if you do one more for me, this is your sliding hamstring curl. Ah, she saved it there. Good. And if you do one more for me, you really want to keep the hips up nice and high, so try not to let them dip down as the leg goes out, and you want to keep this nice and neutral. Try not to let this kind of pelvis drop forwards and this back bend happen as we go. And there we go. This is your sliding hamstring curl in a glute bridge. Thank you. For our advanced hamstring exercise, we have a sliding single leg curl. This basically is the same as the intermediate exercise, the one my mom demonstrated. The defining difference is that you really are on one leg. So the leg that before was on the floor as you extended the other one comes off the floor. So again, you'll need a slider for this. If you don't have a slider, you can use a towel or a tea towel, fold it up into a little square and do this on a shiny floor, and it should do the trick. You want to have your heel, I didn't explain this in my mom's video, you want to have the heel slap bang in the middle of the slider or your towel, because as you noticed when my mom did it, she had the foot flat, so that when she drove the heel in, she ended up coming off the slider. So for this, make sure that your heel is in the center of your slider, and that will give you a little bit more traction. And it will help keep your foot on there. So for this, we start in a glute bridge with one foot on the slider. So we're going to lift up. We are then going to take the leg that's not on the slider off the floor, and we're going to bring the knee in towards our chest. So same things apply. We want to keep this nice and neutral, so we don't want any kind of bum dipping, back bending situations going on. So really squeeze the glutes. And then from here, you can do this just the eccentric portion of the movement. So you can just extend the leg, go nice and slow and control. Don't let the bum start dipping. And then you can go all the way down and then reset. If you really want to make this challenging, you can do the full curl. So you can go all the way out long and then drive back in. You can see that my hips aren't very high for this, and it's purely because if I really try and lift them up, I don't have the hip extension, and then I just get the big bendy back, which we don't want to happen. So you want to keep that pelvis nice and neutral, and we just slide out and then drive the heel in to come back in. And that is your advanced hamstring exercise. Our beginner adductor, so the inside thigh exercise that we're going to do, is a side lying leg lift. The only differing thing between this and the intermediate one is that you don't cross the legs. So for this, you're going to lie down on one side. You can be propped up on your forearm, or like my dad, you can literally lie on the floor and kind of just use your hand as a little pillow. And then what's going to happen is this top leg is going to lift up in the air, and this is going to be your marker point. So it's going to stay where it is, and the bottom leg is going to lift up to meet it. So you're really going to squeeze the inside thighs and then bring it back down again. Good. So this, if you do this, don't know what accent I'm doing there. So yeah, this is your side lying leg lift. Really squeeze those thighs together. Good. Let's do one more. Good. Perfect. Make sure you do both sides. Don't think I need to say that, but yeah, make sure you do both sides. And there you go. So for our inside thighs and our intermediate version of this, we are going to do a side lying leg lift. So as my mum was beautifully demonstrating, you're going to lie on one side. You can prop yourself up on your elbow, or if you really want to, you can actually lie all the way down on your arm. But my mum's going to demonstrate it like this. So the top leg is then going to bend, and you're going to try and plant the foot on the floor. You can adjust this leg. So do you want to take it a little bit lower? Is that a little bit more comfortable? Perfect. You're going to flex the foot of the bottom leg, and then what you're going to do is you're going to lift this bottom leg up and down, so it's like a leg lift. And if you want to make it a little bit spicier, a little bit harder, if you hold it at the top and hold it for a second, really squeeze, 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 and then lower it back down. So you can add a pause at the top. Just be mindful of this leg. You can have the foot flat, you can adjust that foot, you can bring it down, you can bring it up, whatever works for you. Just do whatever your hips are able to. And this is your side lying leg lift. Thank you. Our advanced inside thigh, so our adductor exercise, is a Copenhagen leg lift. So I have demonstrated this in previous weeks. I think it was on the second workout Wednesday we ever did. I demonstrated this. So you will need a chair. The chair will need to have a gap here that you can lift your leg up and down. There is another way that you can do this if you don't have a chair like this, which I'll demonstrate at the end. So what's going to happen is you come to lying on the floor. You're going to place your top leg on top of the chair. And then what you're going to do is there's two options with this bottom arm. You can have the forearm on the floor, or you can have the hand on the floor, completely up to you. But what you're going to do is you're going to lift the hips up off the floor, so it's like a side plank. This top arm can go up in the air, it can go on your side, you can take the hand to the hip. But what you're going to do is you're going to push down through this leg. We're going to squeeze the bottom leg up towards it and then gently bring it down. And this is your Copenhagen leg lift. If you want to make it even harder, so if this is too easy, you squeeze the leg up. You're going to hold it for a count of 2, maybe 3. 1, 2, 3. Really squeeze the legs together and then bring it down. So you're just adding in a little pause at the top. So really squeeze, 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 and then come back down. Yeah, make sure you do both sides, but this is your Copenhagen leg lift. If you don't have a chair that you can do this on, you can do it on the edge of a sofa. So all you would need to do is exactly the same. The top leg would go on top of the sofa, hips come off the floor, and then instead the leg can just go slightly forwards, and it can just slide up the side and then come back down. So that's just another method if you don't have a chair that allows you to bring the leg in the middle. But there you go, that's your Copenhagen leg lift. Our beginner abductor exercise is a clamshell. So what's going to happen is, again, you're going to stay lying on one side. For this one, you are going to prop yourself up on your elbow. You can lie out nice and long and flat if you want to, but my dad's going to demonstrate propped up on his elbow. So from here, what you're going to do is you're going to bend your legs. Doesn't have to be a 90-degree angle, just whatever works for you. The feet are going to stay together, and then the top leg, like a clamshell, is going to open up, and then it's going to come back down again. Good, so as you do this, you really want the pelvis to stay facing forward, so you don't want to roll backwards. If you do one more for me. So it wants to stay where it is, and you're just lifting the leg up, really squeeze at the top, and then come back down. Good, if you do a few more for me. So you'll see, I'm sure you've seen this exercise before, a lot of you. You can do it with a mini band around your thighs if you want to, but just take it at your own pace and do what you need to do. And there you go. That is the clamshell. Thank you.
Your mum's had enough of the day, so she slumped in the chair. But she can still do her leg exercise.
So, for your intermediate exercise, for your abductors, basically your abductors are your glute medius, glute minimus, and then your TFL. So that's what we're going to work. So if you feel this in the top of your bum at the side, you are doing the right thing. It looks, I'm not going to lie, this exercise looks like nothing. It looks like my mom is just slumped on the sofa right now, not doing anything. But I promise, this does work. Does it work?
It does.
Yes. So basically what you want to do is you want to find a chair or a sofa that you can rest on, and you want to lie on it sideways. And basically the bottom leg can come out in front, and you can kind of plant the foot on the floor and really like support yourself, stabilize yourself. The back leg wants to be straight. Oh wow, you've moisturized. And you want this leg to be in hip extension. So you don't want it to come forwards. No, demonstrate, yeah. You don't want hip flexion. Your leg will go a lot higher in the air if you do it with the hips slightly flexed, but we want to work these muscles here, and they will work harder if you take the leg slightly back into hip extension. So what's going to happen is now she's going to start on the floor, and she's going to lift the leg as high as she can, and then back down again. And this is our extra range side lying leg abduction. I feel like I've just minced the title of that, but there we go. Where do you feel it, Mum? Perfect. That is what we want. So yeah, there we go. Thank you. Our advanced exercise for our abductors is the pissing dog. Yes, this is an exercise. It's a thing. So yeah, the reason why this is advanced is just because of the lever length and how the body is positioned. It makes it slightly harder than the intermediate one. We're going to do an isometric hold as well. So for this, you want to come into a tabletop position, and then one leg is going to go out towards the side. So for this to work, you have to make sure that your pelvis doesn't tip forwards or excessively backwards, so you don't want any rounding in the back. And you also have to be careful that this entire hip doesn't lift off the floor. So if I turn this way, we don't want this entire hip to kind of lift off. So what's going to happen is, I personally think it helps to think of pushing this hip down as this leg goes up. So this is opposition. So you see why this is called pissing dog? So we're going to stay here, and then all you're going to do is, keeping this leg long, you're going to lift it off the floor. The hips are not going to move. And you're going to hold it here for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Plant it back down. And that is your pissing dog. So you can do rounds of that. Make sure you do both legs. And as I said before, please, please, please make sure that you don't lift the entire hip. Stays nice and flat, or it stays level, and then you fight to lift that leg up. And that is the pissing dog. For our beginners glute exercise, we are going to do a hip thrust. So for this, you will need a chair or a sofa to rest on. And basically you want the bottom of your shoulder blades to be just on the edge. So it should go shoulder blades, and then the sofa like is just there. So it's almost like your shoulder blades are sitting on the edge of the sofa. So I'm going to ask you to go a little bit higher. There we go. So what's going to happen is the feet are then going to go hip width apart. The feet are going to be parallel, so they're going to point forwards. And then you're going to push down with the feet and you're going to lift the hips up. Good, lift them as high as you can. Good. And then come back down again. So you're going to do a few reps for me of this. What's really important is that you're going to try and keep from here up the same. It's not going to move. So all we're doing is moving from here down. So don't throw the head back, don't start arching the whole body back. It's this that we want to work. So we're just going through hip extension. Really push down, good. Let's do one more. Squeeze the glutes to the top. Good. And this is your beginner glute exercise. It's a hip thrust. Our intermediate exercise for our glutes is a frog pump. So it essentially works the same as a glute bridge, but the legs are in a slightly different position, and so it slightly changes the engagement of the muscles. So for this, you essentially want the legs to be in a butterfly shape. So the soles and the feet are going to be together, and the knees are going to open out like a diamond. And then it's exactly the same as a glute bridge from then on. So you're going to push down with the feet, lift the hips up, and then gently bring them back down again. Again, if you want to make this a little bit spicier, you would come up, hold it here, really squeeze at the top, and then gently lower back down. Got the hiccups. Boom. So this is your frog pump. If you do one more for me, as you come up, you really want to make sure that the pelvis is neutral and that you're not letting the pelvis slide forwards and then compress your lower back. So it's not a back bend. You want to keep it nice and supported. Good. Gently come back down. And this is your frog pump. And there we go. Thanks. Our advanced exercise for our glutes is a single leg hip thrust. So it's exactly the same as the beginner exercise that my dad showed, but you just do it on one leg. So for this, I'm not going to have space. So for this, again, exactly the same position. So you want just kind of the bottom of your shoulder blades to be resting on your chair. You want the feet to be about hip width apart, and then you're going to lift one leg off. And I actually like to hug it in towards my chest just because it helps keep my pelvis level and stops it from kind of tipping forwards. And then all you're going to do is you're going to come down and then drive through the foot to lift the hips up. Again, making sure that you don't arch the lower back. If you want to make it a little bit harder, hold it at the top and really squeeze the glutes and then come down. You can also change with the leg variation, so you can change how close the foot is to you, how far away it is, and you can also change or experiment with lifting the toes off the floor. So the heel is the only part of the foot on the floor, and you really want to drive and then I need a little bit further away for that. So yeah, single leg hip thrust. And there you go. Make sure you do both sides.